Hey guys, welcome to the first episode or entry in the new tutorial series I'm doing for Unreal Engine 4. For those new to the channel in general or coming back after my hiatus, we have two different series going on with the channel. We got one series of live streams where we're going to make a game in Unreal Engine 4 from scratch, and we have a tutorial series that will work in parallel with that series. So basically, anything that we do in the live stream that I feel requires a tutorial, either because it's necessary information or if it's information that isn't very much out there, if there's not a lot of documentation or not a lot of support for a feature or a tool or anything like that, we would want to make a tutorial about it so that you guys learn as much as I can as well. So in this tutorial is a part one of two where we're going to install Unreal Engine 4. So this one is going to be installing it via the Epic Games launcher. And the second part, which will be a separate tutorial video, will be installing Unreal Engine from GitHub and compiling it in Visual Studio from source directly. This first version going through the Epic Games launcher is the much simpler version, and the one through GitHub is a little more complicated. It's not too bad, but it's more prone to errors, and trying to debug what's going on like that is a little more difficult since you're working with the source code in C++. But this video should be just a few minutes long, so you guys can get your feet wet and we can get into Unreal Engine 4. So the first thing we want to do is type in to Google, download Unreal Engine 4. It's the simplest way to get to it, and you'll have a download Unreal Engine link where it's basically going to tell you to register. So at this point, it'll have because right now I recently just downloaded it, so I'm not going to see the same things as you. But you should see a form to fill out. It'll tell you what country, your first name, your last name, your email, password, account information, things like that. But once that's all set and done, you can proceed to download. Also, at this very same link at the bottom, it says if you already have an account, you can sign in. So if you sign in, you'll eventually get to this part as well. So I can proceed to download. And I have Windows, so it's going to download the MSI. So we're going to let that download. As you can see, I've recently just tried doing this, but it should download and download to my desktop. So I'm going to double click, hit run. I want to download it here in this directory, but if you want to change it, you can change it. So this one, it works for me. Yes. And now this will take a couple of minutes. So I'm going to pause the video and come back when it's done. So I'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, guys, I want to just come back real quick, and you should see, depending if there is an update, it's going to be downloading and installing updates. So let it do its thing, and when it's done, it should be finished, and it should open us up the Epic Games launcher. So I'll be back in just a few moments. Okay, when it's all said and done, you'll get the Epic Games launcher. So it's pretty straightforward at this point. You have the Unreal Engine tab where you can get information, latest featured content, live streams, information just in general about Unreal Engine. Next, you have the Learn tab, which you will be able to access documentation, tutorials, quick start guides, things like that. Let's see if I'm still in here. Yeah, fun fact, Radial Impact is still in the Learning tab, so under Community Contributions, this is something I did a long time ago, so 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. Um, Not really supported anymore, as you can see, 4.11 was the last supported one. I've been busy, but fun fact, this is still a thing. You have the Marketplace, where you can buy or download free content, assets, plugins, things like that. A lot of cool stuff here for free, a lot of stuff for relatively cheap. You can also make your own items for the marketplace. I've done that as well. Again, a piece of content I don't really support anymore just because life got in the way, but it's still there. And then finally, you have the library. This is where you'll have your different Unreal projects, how they exist, And you can have these are where they would show all the content that you download from the marketplace. You can install to a certain engine. You can create a project with these templates, things like that. It's pretty cool and it's pretty straightforward. I already have 4.23.0 open and downloaded, but what I'll do is uh, well, I should say better. Just under the engine versions tab, you have a plus sign. It'll automatically do the latest version that you don't have, so it goes to 4.22.3 for me, just because I have 4.23 on here. But you should have 4.23 or 4.23.1 or zero point 0.2, whichever is the most latest, and then you can install it. So right now, under options, what I have, you should download starter content, templates, and feature packs. Engine source, you should definitely, even though it's 20 gigs, you should definitely download editor symbols for debugging so you can clearly see what's going on when the game crashes. Because if you don't have the debug symbols, it's not going to tell you exactly how it's crashed. So that's something to definitely do when you're installing. And something else you'll need when you install is Visual Studio. So simply just type in download Visual Studio. You should get to a link from Microsoft, and the free version is the community version. So you can go under community, free download, and eventually your window should pop up with an exe to start downloading. What it will download first is the Visual Studio installer. And something you should be aware of, just it's specific for Unreal Engine. And this may happen automatically, or it may tell you what to do when you try to install the engine without having Visual Studio installed first, but I'll walk you through it anyway. And this is something that's also important for when we try to download the engine and install and compile the engine from source. So see, I have it already downloaded. I can go to Modify, and I just want to show you the components that we're downloading. So I have Python development. That's not needed for Unreal. That's just something that I want to have. I want to use Python. Universal Windows Platform Development, I believe that's something you should just generally have. It may not be necessary, but I would just say check that anyway. The one you definitely need is the game development with C++. It says use the full power of C++ to build professional games powered by DirectX, Unreal, or Cocos 2D. So it has Unreal in the name. You want to use that one. So you will download it, and when you do download it, or you should select it, and when you do select it, it will also automatically put in some individual components that it requires. Just download everything that it requires from you and let it be done. In the next tutorial, when we do GitHub source, I'll kind of go in a little bit more detail about which components you'll need because it's a little different when you do this via GitHub, at least with the latest version. They might have already put a patch up, but it's something I want to go over while we're there. But let Visual Studio install, and then you should be good to go. So back in the Epic Games Launcher, let's just close this stuff out. You just download the engine. I'm gonna go ahead and repair mine. I assume that just means it's out of date or something is not connected correctly anymore. So I'm gonna let it do its thing. Once it's done, I'll come back and we'll continue to create a quick project. So I'll see you in just a few seconds. Okay, so now my version of the engine has finally finished updating and repairing and everything, so everything's good to go. So you should have something similar. You might, depending on when you're watching this video, you might have something later, earlier, I don't know, depends on what engine you're using. But we're at 4.23.1. So now all we have to do is select launch. And we're almost there. We're 95% there. When we hit launch, it's going to bring up a project window. It's going to ask us if we want to make a project from a specific template, like a first person template, third person template, a rolling template, if we want to use blueprints or C++. Typically, I say it's always better to select C++ just in case you need access to the source code for any reason. If you want to make your own classes in the end or anything like that. If you do it with blueprints, you don't really have that access. You have to kind of rebuild it in a different kind of way. So when the project editor opens, we'll wrap up this tutorial. So I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so now we have the Unreal Project browser, like I mentioned, and here you can open different projects. So I have an ability system project and another project that I'm working on, both using 4.23, so that's why they're available. This one here is using our build from GitHub, so it's not really associated with this version of Unreal. So what you want, you may not have projects here, depending if this is your first time or not with Unreal. Nonetheless, we'll go to New Project. And this is what I was talking about, Blueprint or C++. So Blueprint templates require no programming knowledge. All game mechanics can be implemented using Blueprint and visual scripting. Each template includes a basic set of blueprints, blah, blah, blah. This one is C++ templates offer a good example of how to work with some of the core concepts of the engine from code. You still have the option of adding your own blueprints to the project at a later date. Choosing this template requires you have to have Visual Studio 2017 installed. So it looks like you don't really need Visual Studio if you're going to do just straight up blueprints. Still, I recommend C++. Then you have a bunch of templates. You have first person, flying, puzzle, rolling, side scroller, blah, blah, blah. You'll see it when you get there. Or you could just do basic code and actually build everything from scratch. For our purposes, if we're going to be following our live streams and everything like that, we selected third person. So from there, desktop console, yes, that's what we want to deploy to by default. Maximum quality, yes, and yes, we want to start with starter content. Let's just change our location for the project. I'll just call this UE4 tutorial series. Select that folder, and I'll just call this tutorials. And then select create project. Now, because we chose C++, it should also open up Visual Studio automatically when it's all said and done. So we'll let it do its thing. Once it's up and running, it may take a minute. I don't know if I'll cut away. It seems like it's gonna take just a minute, so we'll let it do its thing. And I guess this would be a good time to promote a couple things while we're waiting. First, we have a Discord server for this channel and for this project. So if you haven't already, please join the Discord server. A link will be in the description. In this server, there's a bunch of different channels regarding all aspects of game development, as well as my YouTube channel. So we have channels about dev and level design. That's where I will announce any live streams, any changes to the channel, anything big or important to say about the channel. It will go into there. There's also an announcement channel, which will be for announcements, obviously. But in other channels that we have one on game design, we have one on level design, we have some on 3D and 2D art, C++ programming, audio, things like that. So in those respective channels, I'll try to put in different resources for tutorials, for interesting articles, talks from GDC, or anything like that. I'm hoping to grow the Discord server so we can have interesting discussions. I also plan on making choices for the game project within that Discord server. So under the game design, start talking game design under there. Level design, start putting up practices and theories and what we want to think about for level design depending on the game we do, things like that. So please join that Discord server. I think we can make something great there. Okay, now that we have the project open, I'll plug in the rest of the stuff later. So now we have our third person project. Like I said, Visual Studio will open up by itself. But now, here you go. You installed Unreal. You're ready and good to go. You can hit play, and you're running around with the third person template. So just to recap, we go to unrealengine.com. We just Google for Unreal Engine 4 download. We create an account if we don't already have an account. We download the Unreal Engine installer. Then we go from the Unreal Engine installer launcher. We go to the, I forget what tab it is. Let me just open it up again because there's a specific tab. I just want to recap it. We go to our library tab. We select new engine version or a previous version that we have, and we hit launch. And then we create our project, and we go from here. Once you do have your project created, It's also pretty simple. You just go to the directory that you want. So I'm under game development, Unreal Engine, Unreal Engine 4 tutorials. You have the U project. So you can just double click that and it'll open the project. You can also open up the solution file for Visual Studio if you want to jump into that as well. But that's it. So that's this tutorial. So the next video, it will be about doing the same process except installing and downloading it from GitHub so you have access directly to the engine source code and compiling it from there. So last things to plug, everything in the description is our Facebook page, so join the Devlin Level Design Facebook page, make sure to like. Follow me on Twitter for more announcements, Instagram for pictures, things like that, some more social media things like that. Make sure to like, subscribe, ask any questions either in the YouTube comments or if you join the Discord server, there is a Q&A channel as well where you can specifically ask questions and I can answer them or somebody else can answer them more directly instead of it being on a YouTube comment. It's whatever you prefer. So I just want to say thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this series as it goes, and I'll see you in the next video.